Are you fascinated by the paranormal and want to hear about encounters that have happened to real-life people in real-life places? Do you need a drink to calm those nerves after hearing some scary stories?
You're listening to Booze and Bourbon.
Well, we invite you to grab a drink, whether it's a coffee or something with a little bit more spirit in it. Grab a blanket, snuggle in, because I'm Kim and that's Jen, and we're Booze and Bourbon. Welcome back. Jen, how are you?
I'm just dandy, Kim. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm good. I'm surviving.
Great.
Yeah.
I don't know if our listeners are ready for this, but I just need to put it out there that I might have got into some, we'll call them space cookies, since we're talking about space-related things, sort of. So, yeah, that's what I did today.
I'm very proud of you, Jen.
Thank you.
I'm disappointed that when I was also offered space cookies after work, I didn't take the offer. I was like, nope, I got to have my shit together. I've got to be on point. So, at least one of us is on point.
Well, thank you. But I did not plan that it was going to last this long. Like, typically there's like a 4 to 8 hour window. And yes. I'm definitely pushing the 8 hours right now. So this was a doozy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have any moments of huge anxiety, or were you floating along just happily all day?
No, there was definitely a moment when I thought sitting there that I could hear my heart rate outside. Like I could hear it in the room. I was putting my hand on my chest. I'm like, okay, it is beating very fast. Yes. But why do I feel like I can hear it right now? Outside of my body. So we know that the cookies were strong. And when you reach that point, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. So what's really great is that you had space cookies. And on today's episode, we're taking all of our listeners to space. Not in quite the same way, because we're going to talk about literal space where you're talking about marijuana edibles.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, so we've got a great episode coming your way, Jen. You want to tell everybody about what we got going on here?
Well, back in 2017, yes, just 2017, the CIA finally revealed some details of its Project Stargate mission to develop psychic abilities for the first time. It started back in the 70s and continued until the shutdown in 1995. People have said that Project Stargate was the inspiration behind Netflix's Stranger Things, which I have definitely watched, with their character Eleven and her special powers.
I love her.
Yes, me too. These special powers include ESP. Have you heard of it before?
I sure have.
ESP is defined as an awareness of the world that occurs through some mechanism other than the known senses. Mind reading, senses when a far-off friend is in trouble, foreseeing the future, and other phenomena more commonly associated with illusion artists than with science. Sometimes known as the sixth sense, which I've seen that movie as well.
Yeah, but that's not the same kind of sixth sense.
No, not the same. When the U.S. government declassified Project Stargate, they released the documents from this project. There were almost 12 million documents. 12 million.
Holy shit, that's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. That can only prove they did a lot of research on this subject. And they also show the organization's plans to harness the supernatural in ways that were never and have never been seen before. The government was looking to harness psychoenergetics to spy on people, to make changes to important objects by mental processes that can actually change someone else's mind. It also describes things such as remote viewing, where people can see things in another place, and telekinesis, where someone can move an object that they're not actually touching. The CIA's file suggests that those in charge of the project believed that they had some success with the project. And perhaps not only is this going on in other parts of the world, maybe even today, but there appears to be a common thread of ESP happening in people who believe they may have had contact with another species from an unidentified world in an unidentified flying object. Encounters of the fourth kind. So buckle up, folks. We have our very first UFO episode, and we couldn't be more excited about it. We have a special guest with us as well.
I am so excited for this episode because we're on episode 67. So that means we've covered 66 other episodes and none of them have had anything to do with UFOs.
That's very true.
And I think that it just took meeting the right person to tell me their own experience. I've talked to a lot of people that have seen UFOs, and I think I might have seen a UFO. I can't be certain, but my husband thinks he's seen one.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen one?
Yes. Ever? I feel like if we asked anybody, at least like probably 2 out of 5 people will have seen one.
Yeah. So we appropriately named this episode Project Boo Book, which is a play on words of Project Blue Book. I don't know if any of our listeners have watched that on the History Channel, but it's a really good show. But before we go down this slippery slope of UFOs and little gray men, I've got this amazing whiskey here in front of me. And Jen, this is another one that I'm going to have to send you a sample of in the mail.
Please do.
We have George T Stagg, which is part of the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. So this is their 2019 release. It came out in the fall, and it was actually distilled way back in the spring of 2004. So she comes in hot. It's 116.9 proof, so you might as well call that 117. The recipe that they used for it is corn, distiller's grade 1 and 2. They also used Minnesota rye, and they also used North Dakota malted barley. So what's really cool when you get this bottle is it tells you, it comes with a basically printed sheet, which I'm looking at right now, and it tells you, first of all, thank you, dear friend of Buffalo Trace. But it tells you so much about the whiskey. So it tells you who the barrel maker was. It tells you the size of the barrel. It tells you which warehouse. So this was actually in warehouse C, which we were in. Ooh. And then it was moved to warehouse H, then K, and then Q, and then I. And it also tells you what floors. So it was on the first floor, the second, the third, and the fourth. The fourth is probably where that ghost was.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very true.
And then it also tells you the evaporation loss. So what they call angel's share. Mm-hmm. So 56% of the original whiskey was lost due to evaporation.
Damn.
I know.
That's a lot. That's quite the chunk.
I know. It was aged 15 years and 3 months old at the time of bottling. And it has a delicious nose of caramel and cherries and a hint of mint, which I don't think my nose is quite that refined to smell the mint. I kind of get it. It smells freaking delicious, I'll tell you that. So I'm going to have a little sip now, Jen. Do you want to do like a little air cheers?
I'm doing an air cheers right now, yes.
We're so far away.
Cling, cling. I look forward to my delivery in the mail.
Oh my.
Is it tasty? Would I like it?
It's going to kick you right in the balls that you don't have.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah. I'm ready.
So they're saying here that there's vanilla and toasted oak with floral undertone. Mm-hmm. I'm getting a lot of spice, so a lot of peppery, a lot of heat going down. Definitely vanilla. It is nice and sweet, but not too sweet. The finish is really long, and you get like cherry kind of flavors in there.
Okay.
And maybe even some coffee in there.
Like it.
It's delicious. You're going to love it.
Great.
Okay.
Well, why don't we roll into a game then?
Let's roll.
A little Would You Rather.
Oh, I love Would You Rather. Do you want to go first?
Yes. I was quite excited about this discussion, actually. Would you rather wake up in your bed in the morning to realize that something is just not right? You are now wearing nothing, even though you went to bed with pajamas on. And you have a weird scar on both of your arms that you can't explain. Okay. And you also don't remember dreaming, so that's part as well.
Okay.
You just feel like something's wrong. Or you are just living your day-to-day life. You come home from work, and there is a strange, we'll call him a little gray man, standing on your lawn. And he's just staring at you, and he's just like waiting for you to get out of your car. And he, approaches you as you get to your house. And then you black out and you don't remember what happened, and you wake up and there's Ryan just standing there asking you how your day was. Which would you prefer as your option?
Wow.
I just had to make it really deep there for you.
So either way, I'm not really going to understand the experience that I had.
No.
Okay. Well, I think then in that case, I'd rather wake up with weird scars on my
Okay.
arms, I guess
Arms.
you said.
So you went to bed in your like safe place and you woke up in your safe place. You're not coming home and being like presented with this weird person on your lawn.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
I'd much rather that.
Got it.
Yeah, I think the other one would be way too scary.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't want to get out of my car and then he'd be like fighting with me with the door and then it would just be terrible. Okay, so here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
We are 200 years in the future. We have determined that there is life on other planets.
Okay.
We haven't really communicated with them too much, but we do know that they're around.
Okay.
You come home from work and you realize that there is a little gray alien man in your room.
Oh.
And he's really cute.
Oh.
He's really sweet. He like turns on like the R&B tunes and lights the candles and gets you in the mood.
Uh-huh.
So you have a new boyfriend and he's a little gray man.
Okay.
Or would you rather have this studly human-like guy that's in your bedroom doing all the exact same things, except he only has one eye and it's right in the center of his forehead?
Oh, man. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to keep this PG-13 because I was going to say something relating to the other physical parts of the person.
We're not talking about that, Jen. We're just talking about like the facial features. And a little gray man versus a human kind of guy that has one eyeball.
I feel like either way, when I take him out in public, people are still going to look at him. But I mean, I'd almost like, I'm interested in the gray man. I like a little difference, you know? I like to keep mix it up, you know, keep it real. And I could probably dress him up cute. So I'm sure he's naked at the time, but like he might look good in some clothes. So
he could ride around on your dog when you go out in public.
Oh, or that.
That you need to get Lou a saddle.
Taking it to a different level, but yes, we could do that as well.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Okay,
our listeners are going to be like, stop. This episode has gone way wrong.
Taking it to a different level. The space cookies have heightened the experience. Well, thanks, Kim. That was great.
No problem.
Yeah, maybe we'll just take a little break, and then when we come back, we'll get into our stories.
Sounds great. Just after the break, you'll hear back from Space Cookie Jen and Kim. Stay tuned.
Well, welcome back, guys. We're going to get into some fun, little gray man stories.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to talk about 2 stories regarding UFOs and the underlying common occurrences that seem to happen with a lot of encounters of the 4th kind. Those, as we mentioned before, seem to be that the experiencer can be left with seemingly another sense, an ESP sense of sorts. And then there's the markings, and the experiencer has no idea how they got them and how precise they seem to be. So let's get into a story that happened here in Canada in the late 1960s. Also considered to be the most credible alien encounter in Canada, the Falcon Lake event, an article from the CBC. On May 20th, 1967, Stephen Michalik was prospecting near Falcon Lake, Manitoba, when he spotted 2 glowing objects hovering ahead of him. One ended up taking off, and the other landed about 150 feet away. According to Michalik, the silver craft was 35 feet in diameter and brilliantly lit. He was close enough to touch the object, and it suddenly lifted off, and then it knocked him flat on his back. Following the encounter, Michalik became very sick. Over the next few weeks, he suffered from severe headaches, nausea, weight loss, blackouts, and diarrhea.
Ooh.
Never a fun time.
No.
Symptoms pointing to a radiation burn, but doctors didn't find anything wrong. 9 months later, he collapsed and found burn marks and a series of dots on his chest. Michalik's doctor sent him to the Mayo Clinic for tests. Weeks later, when Michalik's doctor tries to find out the results of the examination, the Mayo Clinic claims they have no such person on file. What makes the Michalik case so compelling is the detail and the documentation he has to back up his experience. Despite being scrutinized by countless doctors, reputable scientists, the RCMP, Royal Canadian Air Force, the Federal Department of Health and Welfare, and the Manitoba Department of Health and Welfare. No one has been able to prove or disprove Michaelik's extraordinary encounter. The Falcon Lake sighting remains one of the most credible cases in the world and is accepted as genuine by most UFO groups and investigators.
So what's interesting to me is that he finds burn marks and other markings on his chest.
That's fucked up.
Because when we get into a story a little bit later with our special guest, we're also going to uncover a little bit of this too. So it's great. Just great. So the other story that I have here, it's from a gentleman named Ron Arnolds, and he's from Australia. And he wrote this on a website. So you can totally Google this and you will find this letter. So it says, "Hi, my name is Ron Arnold, and I'm a retired lecturer once employed by the government, now attending to the finer things in life, including relaxation and taking things easy in general. My story commences from the time I was 7 years old in 1958 at our family property, and the property's area is unknown. He said he deleted it to protect the people involved. He said it all started when during the very early hours, a midsummer's morning, and whilst my father, mother, and brother and myself were asleep on our front veranda. I remember being awakened and propping myself up to see what looked like a star that seemed to descend to a landing in our front yard. We had a very long front yard from the house itself to the main road, approximately 300 yards, and the width of the block size was about 50 plus yards. As I watched this star-like craft land, it became a disc-shaped object. It may be worthwhile to point out that before this encounter, I had no understanding of alien life or UFO craft, to no knowledge of anything remotely to do with the subject. I had never heard people talking about the subject, nor did I ever have any comics or written material that would have given me any preconceived thoughts regarding this phenomenon. As I watched this craft land some 100 meters away from myself and my family, I began to stand up. I remember turning and looking down at my father, my mother, and brother, and they were all still asleep, and then looking back towards the craft, and it was at this time I was greeted by two beings about the same size as myself at the time, and they were warm and friendly, and I was finding myself being led away with them towards the craft. I still don't recall what happened forward of this point, only that I found myself back with my family, standing looking up at the stars. I remember thinking, gosh, I feel so tired, and I went back to sleep. From that time, I've always been fascinated with the stars and always looking for one that, unlike the others, was moving rapidly with a zigzagging flight pattern to match what I had witnessed early that morning. From 7 years of age, the thoughts were confusing to me of this event, so I decided not to discuss with my family because I didn't want to feel foolish, as my experience, even though very unusual, was perhaps a little crazy to say the least. The thoughts of that morning kept coming back to me, haunting me. I became restless, tormented by the event, and unwillingness to talk about it. This affected my sleep and consequently my concentration at school, as I would be found daydreaming in class. And this had reached an all-time high when my school teacher contacted my mother and informed her of my daydreaming episodes in class. My mother had enough of it and took me to a local doctor to see if I could be maybe given sleeping pills to assist in my sleeping. The doctor agreed, however. He said, "I believe that there's an underlying factor that's causing your son to react this way, and this should be investigated." By this time, around 12 months had passed, and I was taken to a child psychologist at Princess Margaret Hospital in Perth. I remember this doctor asking every which way he could to find out what was causing this problem. I started having recurring dreams that were not normal dreams. These were like premonitions of coming events. As each time I would start to have one of these reoccurring dreams, it would progressively get more disturbing until I reached the end of what now seemed to be a warning. For at the age of 13 years, I was shown the horrific death of one of my cousins and how it was going to happen, even so much as the chapel to where his remains would be laid out for everyone to say goodbye. I felt that this was a coming event and I could be a witness to it. Everything I knew, down to the color of his casket, I had noted as being covered with a see-through cloth to assist in hiding some of his facial injuries. I had even walked down the aisle of the chapel. I knew the location of the undertakers and everything. I was so headstrong about this information, I wanted to inform my cousin and his father. My mother told me no. So I continued to have the sleeping pills to assist in my sleep. Then, like a script in a movie at the age of 16, some 3 and a bit years later, I received word that my cousin had been killed in a road accident, and all of the details had matched what I had repeatedly told my mother years earlier. As for the alien encounters, this started again with a large orange ball that my mother and I both witnessed on the way to my work one morning, and it was so fascinating. I had all of my workmates come out of the building to where I worked, and they also witnessed it, shaking their heads with confusion to what it was. Some years later, I decided not to tell my wife, as she would have thought I was crazy. I ended up remaining silent even though it was bugging me big time. And this was not the last time I would have had contact with these beings, as it was about a month later, and I was subjected to the visitors returning. Only this time they allowed me to see them taking my son. I awoke to a blue haze of light appearing in the passageway directly outside of my bedroom doors. As the light intensified, I had witnessed my son being guided while floating in the air past my bedroom doors. I couldn't move. It was like I was restrained somehow. When my son started to be almost out of sight, I managed to jump up, grabbing him and yelling as loud as I could. "Not my son. No, not my son." I grabbed him by placing my arms around him, and I could feel his body mass, but something was missing. His body weight was not there, as he was completely weightless. And as my yelling at these things continued, I noticed my speech started to slow down and I became faint. And then the next thing I remember was when I was waking up on my bed. Again, only this time my anger was quite notable, and I could not get out of my bed right away. It took about 15 minutes before I could move. When I was able to get up to my son's room and noticed a very unusual setting, my son was tucked up so neatly as ready for a photograph in the bed. He was just so neatly made up. I immediately called my wife and said, "Did you tuck our son into bed like this?" And she responded, "No, I didn't do this." And we both left his room as we walked into the kitchen. My wife said, "What's wrong?" I paced the floor of the kitchen, not knowing what to do next, as this has gone way too far, and I was silent for far too long, and then decided to break my silence as I could not contain this any longer. She was completely blown away with the information that I was giving her, and I suggested that we don't inform our son, of who at this time was almost 10 years old, as I did not want to create a problem for him like what I had to deal with. Both my wife and I once again approached his room, and when she made the comment that he looked rather pale, I too had noticed this, and I agreed that we should attend the local doctor that morning to have our son checked out. It was while we were at the doctor's and during a physical examination that the doctor had noticed markings behind my son's knee. And he said to my son, "Have you been prodding yourself with a needle or something?" My son replied no, and that he had no idea how he got the markings. It was triangular in shape and consisted of many needle imprints. This was to be the first encounter for my eldest son. It was only a short space of time after my son's abduction to when he was enjoying a family Sunday roast when he began choking on something that was lodged in his throat, and he made his way to the bathroom coughing. I was very close behind him, and I noted hearing a pinging sound as an object had passed from him into the sink. So I grabbed it, and to my amazement, it was like nothing I had ever seen before. It was at this time that I decided to make some phone calls to see who I could talk to regarding these things that were really starting to upset my family. I had found a person dealing with this phenomenon, and he had dedicated his life investigating alien abduction cases. There, I had the object photographed using a very powerful microscope at Curtin University. Results were also surprising. There was blood shown on the object. There was a metal breakdown conducted that had given a result of a metal not commonly found in the world. In fact, there was only one location this metal was known to be in, which was Switzerland, and was used for computer technology. Even though our case had been recreated and was viewed across Australian television, only part of the story is shown, as with these few pages I have felt necessary to type. Because if people with true experiences can keep coming forward, regardless of the ridicule and name-calling, which others seem compelled to do, others in the same position will also be as candid and come forth, so we can develop an understanding rather than fobbing it all off as fairy tales. You will never begin to understand the truth unless you can evaluate the situation, and to evaluate, you need the facts and the evidence in support of which I have both. Does this make me insane, or does this place me apart from those who seek wealth, publicity, and other things unlike myself, as I have no hidden agenda but wish to share in the truth? Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty crazy story.
Yeah, I would say that's.
I feel like whatever these aliens were doing, they definitely targeted him throughout his life and then his family.
100%. I feel like you would never get to live like your normal childhood life because you would always be thinking about all these weird experiences that you're having.
Absolutely. It's crazy. It's almost like a family curse. Like, oh, we'll take your firstborn son.
Yeah.
So on this topic, we do have a special guest. Her name is Barbara Nicholls, and we're going to call her over Skype. Barbara is now our new friend. We met just over a month ago, and we had a lot in common with her, and she has so many great stories about the paranormal. So it was difficult, to say the least, to like narrow down which avenue we were going to go down. But when she told us this story, which you're going to hear, you're going to see why we chose this one for this episode. Yeah. Welcome, Barbara.
Woo!
Thank
Welcome.
you. Oh my gosh, how exciting. We finally get together via the internet.
I know. And in these times, it's really the only way we can get together for a little party.
It really is.
All right. You're right on that.
Oh, you're drinking. Perfect. What are you drinking?
Ginger ale.
Jen and I actually, we're not drinking whiskey at the moment. We've moved on to Cottage Springs vodka soda peach.
Yum.
We're mixing it
Absolutely yum.
Yeah.
For sure. No, I would have had a drink, but I really take isolation seriously, and I just don't have any stock.
Very good. That's fine. I can deliver if you really need something.
I know, that's a great thing, right?
It's so good.
Right to the doorstep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did that actually for a friend yesterday. It was her birthday over the weekend,
Awesome.
so I left her some wine on her doorstep.
That's nice
That's
of you.
very nice. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, why don't we jump right in?
Why don't we?
All right. I guess we'll start off with Barbara. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it yourself?
Oh, well, I'm originally from Winnipeg, and I traveled all across Canada. I was in the BC, Alberta area, and I don't know, 20 or so years ago, a videotape jumped off the shelf at me that I watched, and it told me I should be in the Evangeline Trail area, shall I say.
Amazing.
I know, kind of weird. Literally, it jumped off. And it was a B-grade movie, and it was like the time of VHS, right?
Oh, my God.
But it talked about, it was weird, and it sort of foretold the events of the future, shall I say, like increased hurricane activity, and that there would be this huge human migration. And that's just what we saw in this past year, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I've been hunkered down here for about 20 years, expecting all of this, what's happening now, to be happening.
Exactly.
I'm just quite shocked that it is real. It's real.
It is. So, well, Barbara, when you and I first met, I think it was kind of crazy because, first of all, you're so easy to talk to, and it felt like we had this sort of connection. And then when we got into the conversation, somehow birthmarks came up, and it turns out that you and I have very similar birthmarks. So maybe we're like kindred spirits or something.
Well, it's odd, right? I think I was telling you the story of I was teaching yoga to high school students, and one young lady had, you and I, Kimberly, have this similar, but hers and I's were exactly. And all through my childhood, looking at my birthmark, it always said this to me, as if birthmarks could talk. It said, remember.
Wow.
Remember. This is you. And I don't remember, so I failed. But when I saw hers, we were just both in shock. We were just like, huh? That is just odd. And then for whatever reason, I don't know, I decided to pull my pants up and show you my birthmark. Like, why would I do that? you know?
It was great. I was like,
So
oh
weird.
my gosh, it looks so much like mine. So strange.
No. And it was the
That is
same, like,
crazy.
does your birthmark talk to you, though?
No, but I do remember playing a Ouija board when I was young, and I
Yeah.
asked the question, like, what does my birthmark mean? And it basically
yeah.
told me that I was stabbed in the leg in an alleyway. So, you know,
Oh,
I don't know if I died that way in a previous life or what it was.
It's
But
aggressive.
it was aggressive for like a 13-year-old, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. The Ouija talks.
Yeah. Jen has also dabbled with the Ouija board, and
Yes.
she's had lots of fun in her past with one.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe on that topic, what can you tell us about your experiences with telepathy or ESP?
Well, let's start with it's a family thing, right? So I have one aunt, and she actually worked with BC police and helping find somebody who was missing and dead.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And for me, it's just been such a natural thing. Like, I just see images, you know, like, or, you know, voice, like a voice in your head, and it would shout at me something if I was in peril, or if I was going into a situation that was, you know, scary. Sometimes it'll be like, just stop, look around, and then, you know, whether that's a voice or just instinct, intuition, you know, that kind of thing. But I've been able to sort of detect illnesses in people, which is kind of interesting. And like some kind of voice will say, breast cancer or something like that to me, make me jump, make me come alert, you know.
Wow.
Just weird stuff like that. You know, like knowing when, oh, geez, I should call my friend Jana. Geez, I should call my friend Jan. And the phone will ring. It'll be her or something like that. So common, right? That's just the common thing.
It definitely sounds like it's probably a little bit more common for you than like the average person based on our conversations. So you did say that it kind of like runs in your family. Do you feel like you were born with it, or do you feel like there was a certain experience that happened in your life that heightened these ESP senses?
You know, I've had things that heightened a lot of senses in my life, but to pinpoint, I'm not sure. I think what it was like, first I was familiar with my aunt's story, and then I started investigating and reading, and you know, how do you procure such an ability? And everybody can do it, right? As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know some Russell Targ.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, see, we don't call it ESP or telepathic anymore. It's called remote viewing.
Right.
So this is back to the Stargate thing you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So Russell Targ, he was actually one of the head physicists who started this whole program of what you're talking about. And there's a dear soul, he's gone now, his name's Indigo Swan. Do you know him?
No.
The show Staring at Goats was based on this person, Indigo Swan.
Okay, I have heard of that.
This is, used in CIA, NSA, all the alphabet of the American and Russia, right? Russia was big in using this as weapons. And yes, in fact, it's studied in Stanford Research Center. They do stuff. Like, for instance, there was a downed Russian plane in North, I think even Africa, and within the Russian plane, they had some secret codes, and this group out of Stanford remotely viewed and was able to find the plane in their mind and give coordinates to whatever.
That's absolutely incredible.
Agency that they guess, you know. But those are just like, why don't we know about this stuff? Why aren't we told?
I had been researching, as well as Jen had been researching some of the stories that we talked about previously in the episode. about people who have encounters, I guess I should say, with UFOs and then having this heightened ability after the fact. What do you think about all that?
Well, I don't know because I had such a early childhood experience. I wouldn't be able to know if I was, telepathic before 4 years old or more after 4 years old. But certainly I've had experiences. My first one, I know I was 4. It was a big Christmas time, and some entities or extra dimensional beings now, because they're coming through walls.
Right.
They got to be extra dimensional, right? So they're not of this dimension. So they came through the walls, and I think I startled them. They were so enamored with the lights of the Christmas tree, and I can still just see their faces looking forward to the Christmas tree.
Oh,
and then to see the little...
God, I have goosebumps all over my body right now. Woo!
Yeah, so I think I scared them. They went flying back into the wall.
That's wild.
But,
oh, wow.
But what makes it memorable, and really I didn't remember this, and the last little while this memory came back, and it was validated by the next day as a little girl. I went looking and investigating through the wall, which they went, and so, I knew it wasn't a story that I invented. It was,
right.
I never got to the bathroom, and that's why I was getting up in the first place. Everybody was sleeping, I was going to go to the bathroom, and yeah.
Wow.
So I fell on a footstool that had legs, and it got me right in the solar plexus, and I went to my mom, I died. And then I passed out, right? So I woke up in the hospital at the back door. They were just pulling me out of the car. And the doctor came in and pulled up my shirt and he jumped back and he said, did she have a heart operation? And my mom's like, no. He says, well, what is this scar? Which at that time was more prominent. Looks like a laser surgery, right? So, and I do have heart problems. That's right where the heart is, right? And I have... electrical heart node problems that I've had many heart attacks already. So,
oh my God,
I don't know if they monkeyed with me or I don't know.
That's crazy. That kind of answers the other question I was going to ask. Because I was going to say, how did these experiences change you forever? And that would definitely have changed you forever since it's still there. It's a constant reminder that happened. So,
well, then another one came when I was 33. And so I go for I don't even think, this one's so faint, but another doctor, and I was going for a test, and she had my Johnny shirt up, and she jumped back and said, oh my God, she said, when did you have a gallbladder removed? I said, what? There's another scar, so that one I don't remember getting.
Oh, wow, that is
Isn't that
freaky.
Wild? When she told me
That
that,
is
Jen,
wild.
I was just like, this is unreal. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is unreal. Well, I don't go around telling everybody this, only until I've had a few glasses of wine,
Well, thank you so much for telling us. We feel very special that you can share this with us. So I guess you don't, or you haven't had any memories of these experiences happening as of yet, correct?
No, nothing like that. Only, those entities. I've seen a few crafts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And did you see those here or when you were living out west?
All through my life, I think. They're just different. I remember coming, grade 5, I don't know, walking home from school, and I saw a cigar-shaped UFO. I swear to God. So I started going faster to get a better look, but it was gone. But I mean, I had an eye line on it for a long time, and I don't know what that was. It just seemed
strange.
I could see the rivets as it sort of turned around. It was not smooth round. It seemed to be archaic in design,
right?
But in the air, it didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. The more people that I talk to about this topic, and it's one of those topics too that you just don't bring up in every single conversation when you first meet somebody, because they're going to be like,
no.
Right.
Oh, okay, you want to talk about UFOs. But the people that are, there are so many out there that have seen something, and they're like, there's absolutely no way that I ever would have believed in anything like this before until I saw it with my own eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many books out there, right? I've read several books. I would be in the I was up in Cape Breton checking out some real estate, and I was in the library up in Cape Breton, and there was a woman sitting in the corner, and she was reading this massive book about UFOs, and I said, "Oh, are you a believer?" And she said, "I've had experiences." And so, it engages conversation.
Right.
And where I live on the Fundy Shore, there was a United Church minister who I used to serve when I had my own restaurant, and she came in with a book, about UFOs. I said, "Oh, have you had experiences?" And she said, "No." She said, "But I have a partner who has."
Okay.
But then the United Church minister did have an experience, and it was right here on the wharf, and she described this airship that was hovering, and she said it seemed to be pulling up like water or energy up from like the water.
Oh, weird.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And there's lots of activity here where I live, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that's them. They come here. So her partner had seen some sort of large, I think it was like cigar shaped, low across, I'm looking out at the Fundy Shore right now, low across the ocean, just right down to the valley from, say, Bridgetown down to like Kentville. And friends down that way phoned her and said, "Did you see that?" So, I mean, it was something that was seen by quite a few people.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a lot of,
That's crazy.
it's got something to do with the water, I think they use it as a form of fuel somehow, which is fantastic.
That's a really
Right?
good point,
I think-
because one of the really well-known UFO encounters, especially around here in Nova Scotia, is at Shag Harbour, which is on the other shoreline.
Yeah.
And
Right.
a lot of people have tried to discount that, but I don't believe they ever have. And
Right.
they also did the Canadian Mint not just do a special UFO coin in memory of?
way.
I believe they did. I'm gonna have to double check that, but yeah, I think the Royal Canadian Mint made a coin for the Shag Harbour incident.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's a really good point.
that's great.
Yeah.
So Barbara, back to remote viewing, telepathy,
Yes.
ESP.
Yeah.
Have you had any recent experiences that have really like solidified the fact that you have this ability?
It's I never get anything that I feel that's solid.
Okay.
I'm just always perplexed. There's nothing solid in this at all. And sometimes I wonder, what's the point? Sometimes I tell people, oh, please don't do that because, well, they do it anyways. And yep, there it is. What I've been trying to save them from, it happens,
Right.
What's the point of me having that if I can't help? But, I was looking back at some of the things, and actually I did save the day a few times because I did heed the communication for whatever that was, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I've a few incidences, it has worked for me, but overall, I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's helpful.
Well, you did tell me a short little story the other night when we were talking over Messenger about something being too loud and you not appreciating it.
Oh.
Oh my God. Yes. So, I'm an early to bed kind of person, and I had my bath and I was all relaxed and I was in bed, and my husband Michael was sitting down, and he likes to watch, YouTube videos of all kinds. And it was a little loud, and I was just like, oh, just turn that video off, would you? Just come to bed, turn that video off. And all of a sudden he's like, what the, Sam Blazes, we'll say. Sam Blazes, it's the new word. And his computer turned right off.
Wow.
Turned like blank, gone.
I love it.
So we had a big windstorm a few days ago, and I was out with my black horse, Ebony, and all horses are skittish in the wind. And I was brushing her down in the barn, and she doesn't have doors on her barn. She can go in and out. And I was there for over half an hour, and I, for some reason, thought I will scare her with an image in my brain. I'm not kidding, girls. So I thought of like some big scary creature coming out of the woods at us, and she frickin' spun on herself and flew out the door, and I just laughed and laughed and laughed, and she came back like with her head down like she had been fooled, and she was snorting, but yeah.
Oh
like
my
that's
God.
Wow.
yeah, so it's all about the frontal lobe. That's all I can tell you.
That's amazing.
Like,
I want to go research this.
You're going to go try it, aren't you? You're going to go try it on the cats?
No.
I'm going to try it with Lou later.
Okay.
I'm going to try it.
Okay. All right, Jen, I want to hear how this.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got it.
It's hard to know because there's two things that goes on, right, with telepathy with people, right, or people and animals. Remote viewing is something different, right? So remote viewing's trying to see like a coordinates, what's happening in this coordinates. Whereas telepathy, with people is a different thing. So you always have one thing. You have a sender and a receiver. So I think I'm mainly a sender, but man, do I receive. Like, I can get some really negative stuff, really, right? Energies. Feedback.
Do you feel certain energies when you're around certain people?
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh yeah. I was cooking in a restaurant I had, and the restaurant was full of people, and I came out to bring some food or to get a pop or something, and the waitress there, I walked one step into the restaurant from the kitchen, and I went, oh my God. And she's like, what? I'm like, what is going on here? And then I found out that a man sitting alone in the restaurant was stalking my 15-year-old salad boy. So this man was like 40, but boy, it was like energy you just walk into, and it's not good energy, right? And you just, what's going on? And so just when I said that, the young man came out of the kitchen, and he had this look of fear, terror in his face. I'm like, what's wrong? And he said, I was at a party last night. That man was there. He drives an Alfa Romero. He wanted to drive me around. He wanted to know where I work, blah, blah. So he showed up, right? So.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So I could feel that negative energy the moment I stepped into it, right? And that's frequent.
Wow.
You can feel energy.
Wow.
That's
like,
crazy.
right? You guys you get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
yeah.
women's intuition.
Probably not like that, but yes.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to be said about like certain negative people that draw your energy. Like the common phrase is like the vampires. Yeah, the energy vampires. I feel that a lot. I feel like I'm decently sensitive to, I guess I'm an empath where I feel other people's feelings, and if they're going through a hard time, and I can sense like the emotions.
Right.
And if somebody is in like really close proximity with me, or they're not in a really good mood, like I won't be in a good mood until they're in a good mood.
Also another great way for telepathy to work, if you have an issue that's troubling you, is, ask your question at night, go to bed, and you will receive it in the morning. So, for instance, I was an accountant, and I couldn't find 3 cents in my freaking payroll book, right? And it was the days of ledgers. Mm-hmm. And I went to bed, and it came to me exactly. I knew where my 3 cents were, like, how does that happen? Or sometimes, like, things are just so spontaneous. Somebody will give me a math question. I'm terrible at math. And, like, the answer just comes into my head. Like, where is that? That's automatic download. Right. I hate theory. When you go to university, you always have to know the theory. Mm-hmm. And it's like a terrible, long, equational, boring, terrible stuff. Like, when you get information just like that, who wants theory? Just give me the information.
That's right. The answer's all we need. So,
I definitely appreciate you coming on the show. This is really... very informative. Definitely going to sleep, probably not well. Super nice to meet you.
So great, girl. Thank you.
Well, you take care, Barbara. Stay safe. And we'll be thinking about you, and we'll be chatting soon.
Bye. All right, guys. Well, that concludes our very interesting and very entertaining episode for today. We again thank our special guest for being with us. She opened our eyes to a lot of different things that now have me thinking about the friggin' movie The Fourth Kind that me and Kim watched many moons ago that made us uber creeped out and obsessed with this. And
who knew years later that we'd be talking about this on a podcast? Like, seriously.
I know, right? So, I mean, again, you guys can obviously like research yourself, and clearly there's a lot of information out there, but we just wanted to bring a little bit more to you. So thanks for joining us. If you guys have some stories you want to share, obviously please send them through. You can find us on any app that allows you to listen to podcasts. Yes. You guys can email us at boozeandbourbon@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram, Booze and Bourbon. You can find us on Facebook, Booze and Bourbon the podcast. We don't normally upgrade. We don't normally update our Twitter, but we're on there as well. And
you can tweet at us if you really want to.
Yeah, and we have some YouTube videos that you can listen to as well. So
yes, we do. We absolutely do. And you can also, if you're feeling so inclined, become a patron supporter. We love our patrons. We love all of our listeners, but our patrons kind of feel like family to us. We let them in on some inside secrets every week. We drop the hints as to what the episode is going to be for the next week and what kind of bourbon we're drinking.
Yeah.
So you can head on over to patreon.com/boozeandbourbon to find out more details.
Sure can.
And guys, like John said earlier, if you have any stories or if you've had any encounters or you're wondering a little bit more about ESP, or if you have some more knowledge on Project Stargate, please DM us or email us because we love learning about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you know what, guys? We're going to be back for a brand new episode next Friday.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Booze and Bourbon is part of the ABV network. For more information or to advertise on the show, please head over to abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.